Hey, Joe again. Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the player map, how it's laid out, why it was created, that kind of thing. So, with the solitaire rules and the way the mechanics are, as opposed to how the original game is, everybody kind of sat around a table. They had their own little kingdom or their own area, and then they had a wildlands in the middle, and you had cards all over the table. With the solitaire rules, everything's confined, into one space. You need to have everything that you can easily reach. Everything needs to be in a defined area, and since everything is face down and all you see is the back of the cards, you really need to know where the decks are and where you need to place your cards once you've flipped them over. So I had everything set up so you knew what cards were, or what decks were set up, what discard piles are for those, where your companions, your class card, and your items. And it kind of lays out functional. So if I was going to talk about each specific area, you have obviously the largest area is your dungeon area, and that's where most of the playing happens. When you draw a card, a dungeon card, everything is going to be in this main dungeon area. Fighting creatures, finding items in this area. When you initially play the game, you're going to pick a class. So I've defined this class card area for your adventure. And once you pick one, that's it. It's the same guy throughout the whole game. Next to him, since it's a party, is where the companion cards will go. Below this area is where the deck is for the companion cards. So you'll initially have your pile of character cards, and then if you ever meet one or one of them joins, then it'll be face up in the companion card area. Next to the dungeon area over here is where your health life points are. Since you really only need to use one dice when you're rolling for enter or exit, the other dice is going to be your tracker for your health. And once you get down to the skull and crossbones, you're dead. Up here on the top left is your backpack, and it's where when you find an item, you can keep it in your backpack and use it while you're exploring. There's 8 locations, 8 items that you can store in your backpack and use throughout the game. And along with that, you have your space for the treasure cards. Now, since the goal is, one of 2 goals is you have to get either a gold, a silver, or a bronze treasure card to win the game, there's also a card in there that changes that goal, and you can either have 3 of gold, or 3 of silver, or 3 of bronze. But that event, until that event's turned over, the main goal is 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. Now, there's a black line that outlines your main adventure, and you've got your header for adventure. So he's got a backpack, he's got a possible companion, you've got your class card, you have your treasure cards, and even though those are all in the adventure area, the treasure cards are not usable during your adventure. If you find a bronze treasure card and you don't want to use it, right? If you want to use it as a goal purpose of winning the game, and it goes in this treasure card area, you lose that ability of that card. You can't play it. The only way you're going to be able to keep that ability of the card is keep it in your backpack. But then it doesn't fulfill the goal to win the game. So it's kind of a hard, decision process where you go, okay, it may be a really cool card to use, so maybe I'll use it for a little bit, but once I'm getting close to winning the game, I better put it in my treasure card area and use it for the win. The nice thing also about the treasure card area, it can't be stolen. In this game, you have thieves and you have people that can steal items. Only things in your backpack can get stolen. When they're in the treasure card area, they can't get stolen, which is nice. So this is the adventure area, and it's got a black mark around it. Then you have the wildlands. And wildlands is kind of that area where things are happening. They happen from turn to turn. You have event cards and you have random encounter cards. Random encounter cards are going to happen based on if there's one shown, you're going to turn a card if there's no showing, and you're going to react to that random encounter. You have to defeat the random encounter to use the card. And that's the nice thing about random encounter cards. Random encounter cards, when I read the text, I'm like, oh, these are great. These are things that are going on, but they can be used later on in the game while you're adventuring. So if you defeat a random encounter card, you get to put it off to the right-hand side and use it later while you're exploring. If there's no card there, if you've got it in your right hand or left hand side, on the beginning of the turn, you always flip over a new random encounter card, and then it comes into play in the wildlands. With an event cards are different. They're not automatic. Event cards happen based on a roll. So you have these phases, and I'll talk about those when I talk about the actual game itself. You have a turn, and you have phases in a turn. Event cards happen based on a roll. So on a roll or 5 of 6, an event will happen, and you'll trigger an event, basically. Then you'll flip that event card over, and that's the same thing as a random encounter. That happens, and that affects that turn, or can have a continued effect on the game. You have to defeat the card to get past that event. And some event cards are like random encounters. They have an effect that you can use later on in the game. So on those type of cards, when you defeat it, you can put them on the right-hand side and use those. They're not a part of your backpack. You kind of look up them as things that you have in your pocket that you're using. It's like a skill or an ability, but it's a one-time use. So that's the wildlands, and that's got a green border around it. With the dungeon, beyond this dungeon exploring area, you have the dungeon cards, and that's kind of in a dark blue zone. And that's made up of 3 decks. You have the dungeon deck, which has all the place, door, and traps in it. Then, and I think it also has the special item cards, but it's mainly for the dungeon rooms and dungeon encounters that you hit. Then you have the creature deck, which has all the creatures in it. Plus it has, with the creatures, there's also the special cards, which trigger specific things. Like an ambush, or things that will trigger more creatures. And then you have down below the item deck, and that's where you're going to find all your treasure items. When you defeat a creature, you get the treasure item, and then you can decide whether to put it in your backpack or put it in treasure cards. So this dungeon area comprises all the things that you'll have per turn as you're exploring the dungeon. And you're going to draw a dungeon card, then you're going to draw a creature card with it. You may know what it is in the beginning, you may not. If it's a door, you have to defeat the door first. And once you defeat the creature card, you get to turn over and find out what the item card is. So that's the way I developed the map, or this map, so it was all in front of you, easy to reach. You knew where all the cards should go, and everything had defined space. So, your adventure area, wildlands, things are going on every turn. Your treasure cards to win the game. These are your dungeon cards, comprised of your areas, your creatures, and your items, and then your health, which tracks till you lose the game. So that is the player mat, and everything has a discard pile, so it's easy to take the deck, reshuffle, and create a new deck. But it just has, the graphics are very minimal. I used your treasure and traps as a background and just put everything on top of it. So you can make an awesome player mat. But I think it's very functional. Everything is in reach, and with some good looking graphics, it's going to look awesome.